Right, I think we're going to make a start. Thanks to everyone who's jumped on this this webinar today. Really appreciate you making the time to join us. My name's Bob. If you don't know me already, I'm a HR consultant at Robinson Grace, and I'll be taking you through today's topic of right to work checks. Very exciting. The idea is to give you some tips and guidance to educate you all on all things right to work and ensure you are compliant as an organisation. And throughout the webinar, if you've got any questions, please pop it in the chat and there'll be an opportunity to have them answered either at the end or maybe even during the webinar if you're lucky, where we've got Sue on hand as well to answer any questions, not to put any pressure on her. So before we start, just wanted to give you a bit of a brief overview of us. Like I said, I'm Bob. I'm on the top left there. Been with the business now since November last year. In the middle with Chester the dog there, we've got Louise, who's the owner of the business and is our lead HR consultant. We have Andrew on the right, who's our health and safety consultant. Sue in pink is our client administrator, and we've got Michaela, who's been with us for the last few months, who's our HR assistant and our social media guru as well. Robinson Grace was founded by Louise in 2011, with the goal of offering organisations straightforward, no-nonsense HR advice that ticks all the legal boxes. And alongside our qualified HR practitioners as well, we've got our wellbeing champions, Chester and Harper, the office cockapoos, who, as you can imagine, on most days can be a bit of a handful, but do help keep us entertained in the office. Most of our HR work is received through word of mouth with recommendations from our 100-strong client base. So that includes schools, we've got IT businesses, dance schools, landscape companies, large-scale charities, and we even have a Russian language centre as well, to name a few. And our aim is always to keep HR simple and provide exceptional customer service as well. So before we get into the detail of right to work checks, I thought I would bring this to your attention because it's obviously really important. And I probably will repeat myself during the course of this webinar as well. It's just to make sure it's obviously embedded in our brains as well, which I think is going to be really helpful. So this one is, if you fail to comply with your right to work check duties as an employer, non-compliance can lead to serious consequences that could cripple your business. So you could face a civil penalty from as high as £45,000 per breach for illegal working for just the first offence, and then up to £60,000 per worker for repeated offences. So criminal prosecution, enforced debt action, and county court judgments are also possible. So non-compliance can also hamper your ability to get future credit and can lead to disqualification of company directors and see you end up in the Home Office's civil penalty offenders list. And all pretty terrifying stuff as a business owner, to be honest. So it can be pretty serious if you're not conducting the right to work checks, which is why we're here today to help you and try and advise you with how you can go about it going forward. So don't worry if you find any of this complex. We'll send you the slides and useful links after the webinar. And like I've already said, it might be a little bit repetitive. Obviously, it's just to help drum it into your minds after the session's complete. So why is it important to obtain a copy of a right to work check? So firstly, every employer has to do a right to work check for all new starters and employees they employ. It's good practice for employers to conduct an audit of all current employees' files to make sure they have the correct right to work checks and any visas are still in date and valid. We actually have an individual who's doing that at the moment on this call, funny enough, for one of our clients. Doing right to work checks is a legal requirement, and failure to do so can result in hefty fines, as I've also said on the previous slide, and can result in those hefty penalties from £45,000 and up. As an employer, the first thing you need to remember is to make sure anyone who comes for an interview brings their right to work documents with them. And this will save you having to start the process again when they begin their employment. And then the right to work check must legally be conducted on the first day of employment, obviously for all new employees again. So now you've hopefully understood the importance of having the correct right to work checks in place for your business. Let's go through the most important points. So firstly, it's important to remember that as an employer, you must get your right to work checks done on your new employee before they start working for you. And all staff who currently work for you all have a correct right to work held on their personal files. So before is the key word here. Let's start by understanding the three main right to work checks that you can do. So we've got manual, digital, and online. Each has its own benefits and requirements, and we'll go through each of these types of checks through this webinar one at a time. So let's deep dive into the first of the right to work checks, which is manual. So put simply, they are face-to-face verifications of physical documents. So they're going to be the most popular type of right to work check. It's a traditional method and still applicable in certain situations, such as for employees who hold British or Irish citizenship. Now, in many right to work checks, there are 3 steps to follow. So step 1, the first step is to obtain the original document. So to conduct a manual check, you must obtain the original right to work document from the employee. It's crucial to check the document in the employee's presence to ensure validity, and we'll come on to that a bit more in a bit. Remember, if an online check is not possible, manual checks are your go-to method with your checks. After obtaining the original document, step 2 is check. Once you have the original right to work documents from the employee, check the validity of the documents. While you don't need to be an expert in identifying fraudulent documents, you need to be vigilant. So verify that photographs on the documents match the person in front of you. And I do have a quick example here if you can see me. My wife will kill me because this is her old passport, but basically this is it. So you have the picture page here and just checking the authenticity of that and the validity. So again, check the documents to familiarize yourself with how authentic ones look. So you've got the holograms and also you've got all the pages as well to make sure, and just put it under proper lighting as well, just to make sure you can check the holograms there. And then we've got step 3, which is copy. So record keeping is vital for right to work compliance. You must make sure you retain legible copies of the provided documents and record the date of the check and state that the original has been seen along with your signature on the document. And we do have an example here. Hopefully you can see it. Again, I can send you an example of this. So Sue's done this for one of our employees. So original seen, and then it's got a signature, and then it's got the date on there as well. And again, we'll go through that a bit later, and I'll give you an example of that on the webinar slides that we'll send over. And you need to retain these copies for the duration of the individual's employment and an additional 2 years after they leave. And obviously, when copying and retaining documentation, you need to ensure you are compliant with data protection laws, obviously GDPR. So to summarize and remember a right to work check with steps OCC. So we've got obtain, check, and copy. So as right to work checks seem to be an anomaly for some organisations, I'm sure you guys are well aware of them, we want to check your understanding and thoughts on the topic. So we sent this question out to you at the start of the week. So a UK employer can hire someone without checking their right to work in the UK if the person has a valid UK driving licence. So you had the options of true or false. Incredibly, everyone's gone for false, and I can tell you that is actually correct. So having a valid UK driving licence does not automatically confirm a person's right to work in the UK. So right to work checks are necessary to verify that an individual has the legal right to work in the UK, and a driving licence does not satisfy these requirements. Employers must follow specific guidelines and obtain appropriate documentation to ensure compliance with UK immigration laws, as we are discussing today. So next, we've got the digital right to work checks, and I'll have to apologise because it's a bit of a mouthful to say. So if I do get it wrong, I do apologise. So step 1, as an employer, you can utilise identity document validation technology, or IDVD for short, which is easier to say, to check British and Irish passports or e-visas remotely. So this is when a staff member may work internationally or away from their office for an extended period. So with digital checks, there's no need for physical right to work documents or face-to-face meetings. The IDVT technology allows employers to verify an individual's right to work remotely, making the process much faster and more efficient. So obviously, it's important to stay up to date with the latest requirements of IDVT, and you can do that by visiting the UK government website. And we've also got a few useful links to help support you with IDVT as well, which I will send across to you following this webinar. And we've got Credus and Trust ID down the bottom as well, which are really useful websites that can help with IDVT. And step 2 in this segment on the copy element, employers, again, apologies for keeping to reiterate this, but employers must retain copies of the IDVT check output. So recording and retaining copies of the output is crucial for compliance. So it's essential to keep these records throughout the individual's employment, and again, for 2 more years after the employment has been terminated. The same with the manual checks. And you need to remember as well that these records must be stored securely in a format that cannot be edited or altered, such as a PDF scan and photocopies in JPEG format. All the digital checks offer is convenience, so employers must remember they cannot make them mandatory for individuals if it's not applicable for them. So again, remember, employers should provide the option to individuals to prove their right to work through a manual document check if they want to. And it's important to remember to treat individuals without passports or those who prefer manual checks with fairness and inclusivity. Okay, we've still got another question for you now. Just thumbs up and down for this one will be absolutely fine. So the monarch does not need a passport, true or false? So I'll just get thumbs up or down for this one, please. Hopefully we've got a few there, Michaela. One coming up on the screen. Cool, awesome. Anyone else? We'll move on there then, that's fine. So the answer is actually true. So the monarch does not need a passport, but all other royals do. You all need passports, obviously, but it's a different ballgame for them. So before King Charles III became king, he needed a passport for foreign travel after he became king. So he now no longer needs it. So obviously that saves time at passport control there at least. So moving on to the third and final type of check, and that's the online right to work check. So in the online right to work check, the first step again in this category is obtain. So remember in OCC, when this is applicable is probably a key question here, as this will mostly relate to international employees that you have. If an individual possesses a biometric residence permit, biometric residence card, pre-settled or settled status under the EU settlement scheme, then the online check-in service will be the way to go. Again, don't worry if this is all a bit, we can send a webinar and the slides over to you afterwards to revisit that. But to initiate an online check, the individual must grant permission to the employer to obtain a unique 9-character long share code. And they can get that by logging themselves onto the link provided by gov.uk, and this will take them through the process of obtaining their 9-digit share code to prove their immigration status to the employer. And once the share code is obtained, the employee will need to pass this to their new employer, yourselves, to carry out the checks required. And this is actually how it looks. You can see here the 9-digit number that needs to be sent or given to you as the employer. So make sure they have your email address as well if you want to receive this via email. And then again, OCC, next stage is check-in. So once obtained, you can now use the service to check someone's immigration status when you have their share code. The share code will have been emailed to you or given to you by the individuals whose status you're checking. But just to be aware, they do expire after 90 days. So it may be better to check this as soon as you can. I'm sure you will. You'll also need the individual's date of birth as well. The service will then show if they have the right to live in the UK and any restrictions on their rights or access to benefits and services. And again, hopefully you can see that okay. Again, we'll send it to you to make sure you get a good copy. But as you can see from the slide, you receive something like this of your new employee's right to work details. So you'll see the type of visa they have, when this is due to expire, and what type of work they can do. You also see if there are any restrictions, e.g. if they're a student, and it's worth looking over this and making sure your new employee can actually do the hours and work the areas you require them to. It's very important to make a note of this page as well and get a screenshot and pass this on to the relevant admin, HR or management team within your organization to store the information and make sure it's input as part of the new starter process with your HR and payroll systems. I would also recommend you set an Outlook calendar reminder or invite to yourself 2 months before it expires to make sure your employee has started the process of renewing their visa and for you to keep tabs on this again. Again, once they've gone through this process and yourself, they'll have to receive another share code and repeat the process again. But obviously you already know about the process, so hopefully it won't be too difficult the second time round. And finally, moving on to step 3, copy. Once the online check is complete, it's crucial for employers to retain the necessary documentation. Employees should keep a copy, again, or screenshot of the profile page you've just seen that verifies the individual's eligibility to work. This copy should be retained electronically or in hard copy if you store personnel files on site for the duration of the individual's employment, and again for 2 years after the employment ends, as in the other checks. Right, as much as she's going to kill me for showing this, we're now going to show you a video that Sue made on share codes to reiterate their importance. And again, that's presented by Sue from our Robinson Grace team. If there are any issues with the sound, please can you give me a shout out? That'd be really good. Thanks a lot, guys.
We've noticed how important share codes have become in the UK since Brexit, yet many still don't fully understand what they are and how to use them, even though not complying with employment law could lead to hefty fines between £45,000 and £60,000. So in this video, we'll introduce you to share codes and how to use them, whether you're a HR manager, an employer, or simply an employee. What information can you get with a share code? Using the unique share code and date of birth, you'll be able to 1. Find out the types of jobs a person is able to carry out. 2. For how long the person is legally able to work in the UK. 3. Whether they have access to public services like the NHS. 4. The person's rights to benefits. And 5. Whether they're able to open a bank account or apply for credit in the UK. How do I generate a share code as an employee? So firstly, to start the process if you are the employee, you'll need your biometric residence permit number, your biometric residence card number, your passport or your national identity card. Log into your gov.co.uk account with your ID you used for your visa application. Next, you'll receive a 9-digit code to your phone or email address. Once you've logged in, you'll be able to view your immigration status and generate a code. Select why you require the code, then click on Create Share Code, and a 9-digit alphanumerical code will appear on your screen. Finally, give the code and date of birth to your employer so they can complete the right to work check. What does the share code mean for you, the employer? If you're an employer or HR, insert the applicant's share code and date of birth into the UK government website in order to view their immigration status. The generated code will only be valid for 90 days. After this, candidates will need to generate a new code. As of April 2022, this can now be checked through the Identity Document Validation technology called IDVT. Ultimately, HR teams need to familiarise themselves with this right to work process not only for time saved and benefits, but also to comply with UK employment laws and, of course, avoid those hefty fines.
Thank you very much, Sue, for that. Appreciate it. Don't want to watch it again, that's fine. So in summary, we understand navigating the complexities and preventing illegal working can be challenging, and that's why we're here to provide guidance and support every step of the way. So don't take any chances on your business's future. Reach out to us and we will be happy to help. Again, I've dropped the slide in at the start and I showed at the start of the webinar that clearly summarises the importance of obtaining copies of a right to work check and why they should be carried out. The biggest takeaway being the potential for £45,000 upwards fine if there are any right to work offences. Something to keep in mind going forward. But again, don't be worried. If you're unsure, come to us for help on that. We'll also send you this very informative right to work checklist, to accompany the slides to support you with your right to work checks following this webinar. Just gives you a bit of a guideline of the sort of things you can accept for your right to work checks. And at Robinson Grace, for those of you who are our retained clients, you're eligible to access and receive free policies, template letters and unlimited phone line support from us and our qualified HR consultants Monday to Friday. If you are in a sticky situation on right to work issues, again, come to us for advice on guidance. Our contact details are on the screen if you haven't got them already. So if you have any other questions on this that you want to raise outside of this webinar, then please get in touch with myself, Sue, or anyone else in the team. Additionally, if you're not one of our retained clients and are interested in becoming one, please get in touch after this webinar and we will be happy to discuss what options are available to you. That's it from me. I don't know, Sue, if there have been any questions during the course of the webinar in the chat.
No, we've not had any questions, Bob, at all on the chat.
Excellent, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about what you've heard today that you'd like to sort of put to us? If you don't want to share them, I'm happy to receive them via email afterwards and can respond. That's no problem. Okay. Cool. Okay, I'll move on then. Thank you very much. Again, any questions afterwards? That's no problem at all. And finally, here a breakdown of future webinars. If you have enjoyed this one today, I hope you have. We're delivering in 2024 with the next one on managing performance, which we're doing in about 3 months' time. If you wish to sign up, please register on the link on our website, which again I will share with you once this webinar is complete, and alongside the additional info of the slides. And that's it. Thank you very much for spending a bit of time with us today. Hope that's been useful for you, and I look forward to catching up with you all again soon. You enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.